My name's Christopher Berry. I've been in trucking industry about 30 years. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately because it's kind of a love-hate relationship. I mean, I love being on my own and on the road, but on the other hand, I've got a wife and family at home, and that's the one thing I do hate is being gone. Most of my career, I did household, moving people, cross country.
So you was working with a semi-truck, you was pulling semi-truck. And
oh yeah, yep.
And you was doing moving jet also
yeah,
too?
Yep.
Oh
yeah, yep.
I was not a driver, I just was,
yep.
with the truck.
Refrigerators and baby grand pianos up and down stairs, and oh yeah. I mean, we had, I drove for North American van lines, and most of the time we'd have to go in and pack up the whole house.
Yes.
You'd get there and you'd walk in and oh yeah, but you'd have to pack up all the dishes, the paint. They wouldn't, because they were corporate moves. They were big shots in companies, so they didn't have to pay for anything. So the only thing that would really be packed up was like their storage stuff, like their Christmas decorations and stuff like that, and maybe stuff they had in the basement. Other than that, you had to go through, pack up the whole kitchen, everything. We didn't empty drawers, out of the furniture, because in household you get paid the weight times the number of miles. So you're trying to keep, you leave dresser, you don't want to take up more space emptying out a dresser. It might take 3 or 4 more boxes to pack up what's in the dresser. So you leave it in there because you're trying to save space, because they'd give you, sometimes you might have one whole shipment that took up the whole truck, or another time you might have 6 different shipments. So if you have a shipment that, say for instance, weighed, they estimated it to be 15,000 pounds, and you pack too much and it takes up room for 17,000 pounds, well, they might have had a 10,000 pound shipment that lined up for you. Now you can't get that on the truck. So it was trying to condense everything as much as possible to get as much on the truck, because you make more money.
And what I really like it, when I started, I was packing so not nicely, and later you so perfectly,
Right. Oh yeah,
nice,
yeah. I mean, again, you're trying to make the most out of the space. So you're up on a ladder and you're putting stuff up at the ceiling. You're putting, yard tools and curtain rods and oh yeah, yep.
Like that.
So that's what I did most of my career was household.
For how many years you was doing this?
Probably about 25.
Okay, and how they was paying you? Like, you was like a company, so they like paying you per hour, per
No. I was the owner operator.
Oh, you was the owner.
Owner operator.
You was getting paid for a square feet, right?
Right. Well, they call it the line haul.
Okay.
The line haul, and it was the weight times the number of miles.
Okay.
And it used to be really good money. Okay. I mean, it used to be fantastic money. In fact, back now probably the mid '90s. There was jobs I'd make $15,000 on.
15,000?
15,000. I mean, that was for packing, for load, but then I had to pay all my labor.
That's what I'm talking about.
All my fuel.
Probably for people from a Craigslist, right?
No, because I was responsible for all the damage.
Okay.
So I wanted people that knew what they were doing. So, and from other North American agents. North Americans got offices all over the company. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd go, and whenever you got your paperwork, you always had the origin agent, that was close by, whoever went out and did the survey. And you'd get help from them. Okay. And then the destination agent, wherever it was going, you'd call ahead and get guys, sometimes they'd meet you right at residence. Okay. Other times you'd have to pick them up at the office. Okay. Later on, I've got 3 boys. Once they got old enough, they started riding with me. And they were, I'd rather pay my boys than pay some strangers. Okay. So, I wanted guys that knew what they were doing, because if somebody's carrying something in, they break a chair leg off or something, they come out of my pocket.
But this happens still. It's always something.
Nah, not
so much.
No, because that's one thing too, is you don't stay in that business very long if you have a lot of claims. If you're damaging a lot of stuff, you're making a bad name for the company. The agent I drove for was out of Detroit, and they were a big agent. They had like General Motors and Chrysler and Ford accounts, obviously being from Detroit. But, you don't stay in that business very long if you're tearing stuff up and damaging stuff. And quite often we'd have to haul cars. People were flying, say I'm moving somebody from Detroit to California. They didn't want to drive 3 or 4 days, so the company would authorize you to haul their car too. So we'd load the car in, and we'd have to put cargo bars up and plywood and deck over the car. And And then towards, the last few years, they got away from hauling cars so much because the cars took up so much room and they really didn't pay that much, so they put the cars on a car hauler. But the mid-90s used to pay really good. Well, then the company started worrying about, these big companies, they discount too. They give them a big discount. Well, then they started giving them even more discounts to where we used to get paid by the carton. So like a dish barrel, we put dishes in and everything. That dish barrel alone would pay like $25 for us to pack it. Plus then they'd charge like $10 just for the carton. So there was pack jobs where I would make $2,500 or $3,000 just on the pack job, on the packing. Then if there was stairs, say you're moving somebody into a third floor apartment, they would charge for each flight of stairs. Or what they call a long carry. If a house sat back off from the street and it was 500 feet, had a 500-foot driveway, they would give the first 75 feet to the customer. After that, they would charge them so much based on the weight for each additional 75 feet. Yeah. Well, there was sometimes I'd get a long carry and it would pay $1,500 just for the long carry. Well, that would pay for the labor on both ends. Okay. North American started giving more and more discounts, so then they cut out the long carries, they cut out the stair carries, and then they took the packing and they rounded it off because they figured out a lot of guys were ballooning the packing, packing more than they should have to get more money on the packing. So then they based the packing on the weight. So they'd say, okay, this is what we're going to pay you to pack 14,000 pounds. It didn't matter how many cartons. If you could pack it in 1 or pack it in 100, you're only getting paid this weight. So everybody started packing tighter to save money on their cartons. Plus, they were only getting, they're getting away from the balloon packing.
But other moving companies, like what I was doing, like most of the time I just was loading from the warehouse to the trailer and then just doing delivery. So I was not packing. But what those people do in the companies, they come into your house, okay, and they saying to you like 2,000 those feet, right, square feet, whatever. Right. But in reality, it's just 1,000. Okay. So they cheating a lot.
Yeah.
They stealing money from the people.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the smaller
big companies, what I like, they do for a weight. They do for a weight. I'm not sure. Like right now, Mayweather. How's that company called?
No.
Big. Like I hear they doing by the weight. They not like by the speed, by the weight. So you cannot cheat so much. So
right. Well, even then, I mean, people would cheat on the weight. Like when I first started out, I would drive for a place called when I first started, and they just went out of business. It was called Grable Van Lines. They had American flag on the side of their trailer. And they just went out of business like 2 years ago. But and they were nationwide. But there was a guy that actually kept a waterbed mattress, an empty one. The bladder, kept it in his belly box, and he'd go get his lightweight. Well, then before he got his heavyweight, he'd go to a truck stop and fill up that waterbed mattress with water, and it would bump the weight 2,000-3,000 pounds. And everybody did this. They'd get their lightweight with their tanks pretty empty, and before they got their heavyweight, they'd fill up their tanks. Or when you got on the scale, if you had already picked up your help, you made sure everybody got out of the truck.
People figure out the way
and then when you get your heavyweight, everybody stays on the truck. And I've actually seen other drivers at like a scale. Okay. They'd have their help happen to be following them in a car. They'd pull up on the scale, and they'd have their help pull the front end of the car up on the scale to bump it 2,000-3,000 pounds. But if you ever got caught doing that, you were automatically terminated.
Yeah. And then what? You was done with the household, and you pull up dry vans, right?
Well, yeah. Then I started. I did freight for a little bit, and freight. I really don't like because a lot of times you get stuck sitting. Okay. I drove for a place. It's called CRST. I'm sure you heard of them. They're everywhere. They had started up a new division called Premier, and it was all solo drivers. I've never done team driving, but I never would. I mean, I've been doing it long enough. I wouldn't be able to sleep. I can't trust, I wouldn't be able to trust, especially jumping in a truck with a stranger. I'm back in the back sleeping, and this guy starts dozing off, and I couldn't do that. But they would tell me, okay, you've got a 7 o'clock appointment. One time I was down in Atlanta, and they said, you got a 7 o'clock appointment at Home Depot to deliver. And I picked up, I don't know where, Chicago or wherever. I get down there, I check in at the guard shack. I'm there like 6:15, and the guard tells me, he says, we don't even, he says, no, you're not on the list. He says, we don't even have a 7 o'clock appointment. I said, well, what about 7:30? He says, no, you're not on the list. Well, my dispatcher never called and made the appointment. So then, yeah, I didn't set it up. So now I've got to wait till the next day. So now I'm sitting there all day long, not getting paid.
But they're supposed to pay you later, like.
Yeah, well, they did. You know, I screamed enough. But another time, I had to pick up at a Libby Glass factory in Ohio. They told me be there by 1 o'clock.
Okay.
I'm there at 12:15. Never called and set me up an appointment. She said, we're going to have to put you on as an add-on. And this load was going to Atlanta. It was supposed to deliver 7 o'clock the next morning. They didn't load me till 3:30 in the morning. So obviously I'm not going to be in Atlanta at 7. I was in like Columbus, Ohio. Okay. Another time I was up, I had to go to a Walmart distribution center up in Menominee, Wisconsin. And up there, I was just supposed to drop their trailer and then pick up an empty. They had a section where all their empty trailers were. And I go over to the section where the empty trailers are. They didn't have an empty trailer there. So now I had to wait for them to unload me. They couldn't unload me until Saturday. And the thing with Premier, you basically ran Monday through Friday. And you had the weekend off. They said you could be home by the weekend. If you wanted to stay out and make some extra money, you could. Well, this weekend I told them I wanted to stay out. So I was supposed to unload Friday, get my empty trailer. Then I was supposed to go over to Waupaca, Wisconsin at this foundry and pick up a load that was going to Buffalo, New York, and supposed to deliver that Monday morning in Buffalo. Well, Walmart couldn't unload me till Saturday. So I drive over to the Waupaca foundry Saturday afternoon. Their shipping and receiving isn't open on the weekend. So I had to sit there till Monday morning. So now I sat out the weekend for nothing. And plus, now I'm not delivering Monday morning. I'm loading Monday morning, not delivering until Tuesday. So really, I'm missing Monday's pay now. Yeah. And I was just, so I got a hold of my dispatcher Monday morning, and he wanted to know how it was going. I said, it's not. I said, I want to know right now what you're going to pay me before I said, otherwise, I'll just drop this trailer here and go home. I said, I sat here all weekend because you guys screwed up and didn't check and make sure there was a trailer here. You know, that wasn't on me, that was on them. Yeah. You know, so that's one, I never had to deal with anything like that with household. There was, I probably count 5 times where I pulled up to a house, went and knocked on the door, and they said, oh, we're not moving anymore, or, you know, we changed companies, you know, we're moving with Allied, you know, but so that was only a couple times.
What they do right now, like when you coming the estimate guy, is if you decide to do a deal, so they're taking this deposit.
Right.
You know,
well, a lot of times those moves are set up like a month ahead of time, yeah. But then for whatever reason, something come up or they found something cheaper. You know, I loaded one guy up. I was just getting done. I probably had maybe a half hour left of loading him, the whole truck. Okay. It was just I think it was a Ford move. And I was in like Louisville, Kentucky, and we're almost done. The guy comes out, and I had been there. We packed up his whole house, packed all the dishes. We were there for like 4 days, maybe even 5 days. And he comes out, and he's kind of shaking his head. And what's wrong? He says, you're not gonna believe this. And I said, what? He says, you gotta unload it. I said, what? The company called them and decided they were transferring them. Okay. They decided not to transfer them. Luckily, he hadn't sold his house. The company, GM, was going to buy the house from, you know, and because they have their own like realty division. If the people can't sell their house, they'll pick it up and then they'll sell it later on. So we had to wind up. I said, you're kidding, right? And he says, no. He says, they're not transferring me now. So we stopped right then and there, and I told him, oh, we'll have to start, you know, in the morning because it was already like 4:30, 5 o'clock. You know, it was getting late in the day. So come back the next day and had to unload them all, unpack everything, put everything back, you know, in the cabinets, you know, the best we could. You know, and then so that time they wound up, North American wound up paying me by the hour because obviously I didn't haul it anywhere. Okay. So you know, and they paid me really good. I mean, I still made, I don't know, I probably made about $10,000 on that. You know,
10,000 on that load?
Yeah, because I was there, you know, pretty much a week.
So
but
why you quit with the?
Because, like I said, then they chopped everything down and started discounting. Yeah, they started discounting it, and you know what it boiled down to is they were taking it. The driver revenue was going down, but the expenses were all going up. Okay. You know, labor was going up, fuel, maintenance on the truck, everything else was going up, but the revenue was coming down. I was sitting in a truck stop one day. This is like 2007, and I started looking, and I had some old paperwork, from a job, basically the same job that I had done from, say, Detroit to St. Louis, and it was pretty much the same weight and everything. And I had literally made like $4,000 less in 2007 than I did in 1998. And I said, you know, I told my wife, I said, you know, it's just not worth it anymore. You know, I'm paying money out, and there's really not that much coming in. And so I got a
your own truck, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
But then I wound up selling it because I was really just kind of tired of being on the road. And for a few years.
You had probably something classic, right? It was classic truck.
Oh yeah,
Classic.
yeah. Actually, yeah. I got this was one. It was a cab over, but it had a big.
Oh, nice. This is what you was pulling down
Yeah.
trailer. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Amazing.
Yep.
Amazing.
But so I got out of that and I decided to try to do some local work.
Okay.
And started driving for a place down in Florida hauling sod on a flatbed. And I'd have to get up at sometimes 2, 3 in the morning, be at the farm, had the tarp, you know, they'd have the truck all loaded, but I'd have to put the tarp on, take off, and we could go to deliver it, and they delivered all the sod to Home Depot and Lowe's. Well, you could go there and you didn't have to get any paperwork signed because it's called pay by scan. They didn't pay anything up front for it, and the company didn't get paid until it was scanned like at the register. So we could drop it off at 4 o'clock in the morning. We just dropped it and go. And so I did that for about a year and a half, but that was too dependent on the weather, because Florida has a rainy season, and sometimes it would rain 3-4 days in a row. Well, the fields, they can't cut the sod because it just turned to mush. Well, then there was no work, and I couldn't do that. I needed to work, and so finally, I was doing it up till midway last year, and then we had the hurricane down there, and then I didn't work for Irma. Yeah, we didn't have power at our house for like 2.5 weeks. It was bad. I never take for granted water, electricity, and gas. We had to drive like an hour away to get gas. The gas stations all had gas. We saw the gas trucks coming in and filling up the tanks, but they didn't have the electricity to run the pumps, so no fuel. It was bad. But then I didn't work, for about 2.5 weeks, and I just finally told him, I said, I can't keep doing this. So just recently, a buddy of mine, and I used to live in Michigan. I live down in Florida now. My best friend was driving for this company up in Michigan, and he says, it's really good, blah, 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 you should come up here. So I went up there and started driving for them, and the problem with them, the only thing they wanted to haul was auto parts. So I got up there at the end of January, and right away they sent me out. I picked up some like empty racks, dunnage they call it, and I take them down to Louisville, down to the truck plant down there. Or no, actually, I take that back. I think I took transmissions or something down to the truck plant, dropped them off, took empty racks back up to Michigan. But they kept running me from Michigan down somewhere and then back to Michigan, where I wanted to get out and go from Michigan, say to St. Louis, maybe down to Texas, run, and then finally get back home. Well, they kept running me back and forth, and then slowly they started getting me out, and I would run a lot down to border towns like Laredo, and then Nogales, Arizona, because they'd send parts. Parts would come from Canada, come in, and they'd sit at the yard while I grab a loaded trailer, run it down to Laredo, unload it there at like a cross dock. They'd have then the Mexican drivers come over, grab the stuff, and take it down into Mexico. Then I'd bring like empty racks back up, from Laredo. Nogales, same thing. One time I unloaded down there, and then I wound up bringing watermelons from Mexico back up, and they were going over to Canada to Costco warehouses over there. But a lot of sitting. I mean, I'd unload like in Kansas City, and I'd sit there for a day and a half, 2 days, waiting for them to find something else. And the problem, it was they didn't have any accounts, and I'm not exactly sure, how Bright does it either. But they were more like the middleman. They're working off of load boards, and they'd see a load or something, they'd have to throw a bid out and wait on the bids to come back. And like I said, I'd be sitting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and nothing was ever planned ahead of time. They wouldn't start looking for a load until I was empty. So that caused me to sit later too, or longer. And but it was just, but they pretty much refused to haul anything else but auto parts. And then get me home to Florida, you know, that was another kind of trick, because, you know, there's no auto plants down in Florida. So they didn't have any auto stuff going down there. So the one time, they only sent me back to Florida twice in the 4 months that I was with them. And one time I took plastic handles for Lipton iced tea jugs. They make different color handles for each flavor, like their sweet tea, their unsweet, and diet. You know, I took a bunch of handles down there, and then another time I took plastic water bottles down there to a water place down there. But if I went to leave Florida, they deadhead me all the way up to like northern Georgia, you know, to load auto parts, going up to Michigan. Or, you know, one time they deadheaded me up to South Carolina to load stuff, and that was going to Laredo. But I sat and sat and sat. They didn't want to haul anything else, and that was kind of frustrating for me.
So how about you? You don't want to back like owner operator back to business?
Pardon me?
Like the owner operator?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm doing now. That's why I'm buying this truck.
Oh, you're buying this truck?
Yeah, so I'll be owner operator again.
So you give a down payment or no?
No, no.
Zero down, just payments?
Yep,
right?
yep.
Okay, nice.
Big payments though. $1,000 a week.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
It is.
But it's, you know.
What kind of truck you buy?
Peterbilt.
Peterbilt, which year?
2011. I actually got pictures of it too. But
okay, how much is it?
$65,000.
65,000.
So it'll be paid off, you know. Pretty quick. Yep, and do it this way. It should be bigger. Yeah.
This is what you're buying right now, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
65,000, right?
Yep. 2011
Nice.
Peterbilt.
Amazing, amazing.
And I like having my own truck, you know, because, you know, company truck, you know, it's just, I like having my own truck because I like to keep it clean. I like to keep it up, you know, running right. A lot of company trucks, you know, they just kind of do it kind of halfway and don't.
And what do you think? Do you think we need a drivers union?
Oh, what? I'm sorry.
Union? Do you think we need a drivers union?
You know, honestly, I don't know.
If it was
you know,
a drivers union, would you join it?
Again, I don't know.
You have to see it first place there, right?
Yeah, you know, if it's beneficial, but you know, one thing I have a problem with is like a lot of these trucking companies advertise, you know, start with them, they'll train you, and you can be on the road in 3 weeks.
Okay.
You know, there's no way you can possibly train somebody in 3 weeks. You know, to throw them out on the road to deal with whatever kind of circumstances can come up.
Okay.
I mean, even as long as I've been doing it, you still run into, you know, new difficult situations every day. But for somebody with 3 weeks, I mean, you see them in the truck stop too. They can't back up. They got 5 or 6 guys out there trying to help them back into a hole. You know, I was at one truck stop and I had a guy riding with me when I was doing household. And when I had that big truck, and I backed in my hole, it took me, you know, like 2 minutes. This guy was out there and had 5 or 6 people trying to back him in a hole. We went in, probably were in the truck stop for 20 minutes, grabbed some food, went to the bathroom and everything, come back out, he's still out there trying to back in a hole, you know. Another time this is probably like 2 in the morning, I was up in Connecticut and I pulled in a TA and I just wanted to grab a coffee. And I went to pull in, and there's pretty much one way to pull in and one way to pull out. And trucks are backed up, lined up. And I'm thinking, what the heck's going on? So I get out, you know, set the brakes, get out, go walking up there. This guy's trying to back into like the last parking spot in the whole truck stop. And he had it all blocked. And there's 5 or 6 guys trying to help him back in. And they're trying to tell him to slide his tandems and everything else. And finally, I jumped up on his running board and I said, hey, buddy, I said, do me a favor. I said, you know, let me, you know, put it in the hole for you. Oh, no, I can't do that. He says, you know, the guys will laugh at me. I said, they're already laughing at you. I said, really? I said, I can put it in the hole, you know, real quick, you know. So finally he let me, and I, you know, pulled up, straightened out, and put it right in the hole. Whoa, you know, I really appreciate it. You know, that was amazing. I just wanted to get going. So then, by the time we got done messing around, you know, because he didn't let me do it right away, I was kind of running behind. I never even wound up getting my coffee. I got my truck and just wound up pulling back out and going. I mean, because really there was nowhere to park anyways. But it was just, you know, that really bothers me. The companies do that and just throw guys out there like that right away. And like I said, even you know, with, I don't know, I guess you could say all the training in the world, you still can't be ready for everything, you know, especially with weather conditions, you know. I mean, hey, guys go to truck driving school, they go in the summertime, you know, and I see truck driving schools down in Florida. That doesn't prepare them for driving up in the mountains with chains and snow, you know. And there's not really any way, you know, you can prepare somebody for that, but I mean, and the only way you're going to get that is through experience, but you know, 3 weeks, you know,
it's not enough. Oh.
No, I don't think, you know.
Okay, so can you give it like 3 tips for a new drivers? Three important tips, 3 important things for a new drivers. What you can.
Well, first and foremost, you know, is be safe. You know, don't try to do too much. Don't push yourself over. You know, and I know what now with the ELDs, it's kind of hard to do because, you know, you got to stop for your half-hour break or you're going to be in violation. You got to stop at your 11 hours. Paper logs, and I'll be honest, you know, there's times where I had to cheat. You know, the dispatch said, hey, you got to be here. You know, there was one time I drove from Los Angeles, California. I left there at like 5 o'clock. Well, no, it was about 3 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon. I had to be in Minneapolis at 11 o'clock Friday morning, or I was going to lose my trailer. And I had one of the newer trailers. They were going to take my trailer away, and I was going to have to get an older trailer. So honestly, and my son was with me then, I slept 2 hours Wednesday night and no hours Thursday night. But I was up there at like 11:45 Friday morning, you know, I made it. But, you know, I've seen, and I've always told my dispatchers, there's no load that's so important to kill myself or to kill somebody else. You know, and I used to tell my customers that too. They'd say, oh, well, why is it going to take you so long? And I'd say, you know, do you want everything you own to get there in one piece, or do you want it all over the side of I-80? I said, it's not worth it. I said, you know, I'll be there on time when I'm supposed to be, but, you know, I'm not going to, you know. So that's the big thing, you know, is be safe, you know, make sure you get home to your family. I mean, I see bad truck accidents all the time. And probably 90% of them are preventable. You know, I had one in my 30 years. I had one accident. It was up in Michigan. It was wintertime. Nothing I could do. A woman came on an on-ramp. It was a 2-lane freeway. I moved over into the left lane. She came on, and she was from Oklahoma, so I don't know how much experience she had driving in snow and ice. And the roads were bad. I was probably only doing like 30 to begin with because there was accidents everywhere. And just as she came on the merge, she started fishtailing. And right away, I just let off. Well, she wound up flipping her car. She started going towards a ditch, and she panicked and spun her wheel. And she come right around on my left front fender. I was in an old cab over, not the one I showed you a picture, another one. My right front fender hit her car, spun her. She wound up in a ditch anyways. Well, the bumper come back into the steer tire, cut it. You know, it blew out, and I wound up jackknifing. And right away, and my brother-in-law was with me, made sure he was all right, and jumped out of the truck and ran over to check on her. And she was still in the car, you know, she had her head down in her hands, and she was crying. I was knocking on the window. I said, ma'am, are you all right? Ma'am, are you all right? And she finally answered me, and she says, oh, my car. I said, don't worry about your car. I said, it can be fixed or replaced. I said, are you all right? And she's like, yeah. She said, I just started sliding. And then she looked up at my truck, and she's like, oh, my God, your truck. And I said, I'm not worried about that as long as you're all right. But, you know, I've seen accidents where you could tell a driver fell asleep and just ran off into the woods and kept going until he hit something hard enough that stopped him. I saw one truck one time that looked, you know how you got the overpass and you got the grass embankment going up to, you know, the road? The guy looked like he was trying to jump it. You know, the truck was all the way up to where the top of the tractor was almost touching the roof of the trailer. It looked like he was going to try to jump that road. Now, obviously, you know, he had just fallen asleep and went right up there. And so that'd probably be number one. You know, I hate to say everything about safety, but, you know, be aware of your surroundings, you know, check your blind spots. Try to enjoy what you do. Like I said, I wish I would have got into it when I was younger, when I didn't have a family, because once you get a family, it's really hard. You know, just being gone. Before my wife started working, she'd go with me on some trips. Like I said, when my boys were old enough, they went with me, so that was a lot better. But when you're by yourself, somebody said a long time ago, trucking's like it's like solitary confinement with a view, and it is. You're by yourself constantly. I mean, with household you're not, because like I said, I'd pick up guys, and then I kind of felt bad for them because I'd get diarrhea of the mouth. I wouldn't shut up because I didn't have anybody to talk to for 2-3 days. But you know, you're eating dinner by yourself every night. You know, I call my wife, you know, in the morning before she goes to work. I talk to her when she gets home from work. Talk to her before she goes to bed. But you know, if you get into it when you're young, you know, you could make, well, back when I first did it, you could make quite a bit of money. And I wish I would have done that and then banked and banked and banked, but I didn't. Or if you're older, where, you know, your wife's not working, she could go with you. It's a great way to see the country, you know. You do get to see a lot. I mean, like I said, I've been to all 48 states. There's like almost nowhere I haven't been. I've seen every big thing there is to see. You know, I used to practically live in Vegas. You know, been up to the Pacific Northwest. It's beautiful. Seattle and Portland, and beautiful scenery. And I like out west a lot. It's less stressful driving because it's more open. I mean, you get in California, yeah, that's stressful. But going through New Mexico, Arizona, you know, it's wide open. You know, you can see for, my God, you can see for like 30, 40 miles ahead of you. You'll see a mountain, you'll think, oh, I'll be there in 10 minutes, and a half hour later, you're not there yet. You know, I mean, you can see that far. Back east here, you can't see that far, you know. So it's a lot more open. It's a lot less stress. I don't know, I guess one thing too is make sure you really want to do this, because once you get into it, it's kind of hard to get out of it. I mean, that's probably one of my biggest regrets is, you know, I had a chance to be a fireman one time, and my wife, you know, and this is actually before I started driving, and my wife told me no. She was worried about me, you know, getting killed. And that's like my biggest regret, you know. And I started doing this. Actually, truck driving is more dangerous than being a fireman. I mean, truck driving's in the top 10 jobs is most dangerous jobs, where being a cop or a fireman's not even in the top 10. You know, per killed the number that are killed per 100,000 each year is more for truck drivers than it is cops or firemen. But once you get into it, you know, you kind of get it in your blood. And that, and you know, really, it's the only thing I know how to do, other than moving. But oh, that's probably it. You know, biggest thing is really, you know, safety. You know,
safety.
Make
sure you're enjoying what you're doing, right?
Yeah, well, and that's pretty much goals for everything. You know, you gotta like what you're doing. You know, no matter what job you're doing, or you're not gonna be happy. You know, you're always gonna be thinking about, you know, something else. And like I said, and I still do, you know, now doing this, but it's kind of too late to do anything else. You know. And then once you're doing this, it's not like you have time to go to school or, you know, anything else. It's, you know, you're kind of stuck, you know, got to have money coming in. So it's not like I can just take time off and, you know, not be working, you know. So you get kind of stuck in a rut. And
but you becoming omnipresent again.
You know? Yeah. You know, the money should be a little better, but then you also have all the headaches, you know, being an owner operator. yeah, maintenance, you know.
Yep.
Yep. So it's a lot of responsibility, you know, but it's better than, I think, being a company driver. I don't think I'll have to be.
Is your wife's name on your hand tattoo, Christine?
Yep.
Nice.
I just
How
had
long you together?
just had our 29th wedding anniversary on June 2nd.
So this is your first and last one, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Nice. Amazing. Good job.
Yep. I got married when I was 25. She was 23, and yep.
And you're still guys together, right?
Yep.
Nice.
4 kids. We just had our first grandchild, born January 1st this year, and
Nice. This is a good one.
Yeah.
Is a good, this can tell a lot. If you're still with the same wife.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. And I mean, a lot of credit to her because, like I said, I was gone a lot of the time, and like I said, I got 3 or 4 kids. My 3 boys, as soon as I walked out the door, they knew I was going to be gone a month, month and a half, 2 months at a time. You know, North America. Sometimes the longest I was gone was almost 3 months. But when they were in their teen years, they knew I wasn't going to be home. Well, as soon as I walked out the door, that's when they would start up. And I would call home, and I could tell just by my wife's, the tone of her voice. I'd say, "What's wrong?" "Your kids." "What else?" And they were always my kids. You know, they weren't our kids, they were my kids. And, you know, knock on wood, you know, she stuck it out, and, you know, a lot of women probably would have said, "You know what, screw you." And, but she stuck it out, and, you know, she's a good woman.
Okay.
Good woman.
I got it. Right. What else would you like to say? Would you like to say something else? Like for 40 minutes right now, so you a lot. Amazing. Amazing.
You know, it's a I don't know. I can't. You know, I say I have regrets, but again, on the other hand, I don't, because I've seen so much, you know, that other people don't have the opportunity to see. So I mean, it can be a good life. You know, like my mom and dad never even left Michigan. I think they were out of the state like one time. You know, they went to visit my uncle in Maryland one time. Where I've seen everything. You know, I walked around in Hollywood. I walked down to the Walk of, you know, the Stars, Walk of Fame, whatever they call it. You know, I've been, you know, I've just seen so much that, you know, doing any other occupation, I probably wouldn't have, you know, I wouldn't have been able to see. So that's definitely a good thing. Family, like I said, it can be tough. You can do it. I mean, a lot of people do, but it's probably it. I mean, I don't know.
So because about the company, you cannot tell nothing much right now, and about this, so, you know, just beginning for right now. So let's do, maybe I hope I will see you in a month, in the 2 months, you know, I will catch you somewhere in the
Right. Well, I mean, the one thing I like so far that I've seen, you know, like I said, Hansel was with me, is he had a load, like he brought a load from Florida up to Columbus, Ohio. Okay. And he wasn't even empty, and he already had his next load from Columbus coming to here. So I mean, that's a huge plus from what I saw at the other company. Plus, where he had to pick up in Columbus, Ohio was only like 10 miles away. Where when I was with the other company, I might have to drive 3 hours away to pick something up, you know, or 4 hours, you know. So I mean, I like that already, that, you know, he was able to get good. And he told me, he said, if you, because I told him, I said, that's my biggest pet peeve, is to be sitting. If I'm going to be sitting, I'd rather be sitting at home. I don't want to be sitting in, you know, Elgin, Illinois for 2 days, because when you're sitting, you're spending money. There's nothing to do. You're bored. You know, you can only sit in your truck so long. You can only be in a truck stop so long. I mean, it's just one of my hobbies is like antiques. So a lot of times I'll stop and I'll go look in antique stores, you know. But other than that, I hate, I don't think I've said it enough, but I hate being gone from home. And if I'm going to be sitting, you know, if I'm going to be out here, I want to be working. I'd rather load, unload. It's run constantly. When I have to sit, it just drives me nuts. And Hansel told me, he said, well, if you're going to be sitting here, it's because you're choosing to sit. And I'm like, well, definitely won't be doing that. So I'm hoping that that part stays true, that, you know, they can keep me busy. And but like I said, that's my biggest pet peeve is sitting. You know, I hate sitting.
Amazing. Amazing. So thank you for it.
Oh, no problem.
And then I will catch you in somewhere here in like 2 months, and you will tell me more. Okay?
Okay. Yep.
Okay, so
absolutely.
I wish you good luck. Say bye.
No problem. Bye bye.